Someone once made you feel like you had finally been seen, not seen the way a friend sees you, with warmth and approximation, seen the way a surgeon sees a body on a table, every wound catalogued, every scar noted, every fracture mapped. You mistook that precision for intimacy. You thought, no one has ever understood me like this. You were right. No one had ever understood you like that, but not because they loved you, because you were being studied. There is a category of human being who moves through the social world the way a grandmaster moves through a chess game. Every interaction is positional, every kindness is an investment, every vulnerability you reveal is a coordinate on a map they are quietly drawing. A map of how to use you. Clinical psychology has a name for this architecture. It is called the Dark Triad. And today we are going to take it apart. Before we go any further, I need to correct a misconception that has infected nearly every popular discussion of this topic. The Dark Triad is not a diagnosis. It is not a disorder. It is a constellation of personality traits, measurable, dimensional, present to varying degrees in the general population, including, possibly, in you. In 2002, psychologists Delroy Paulhus and Kevin Williams published a paper that formalized what researchers had been circling for decades. They identified 3 distinct but overlapping personality traits that, when elevated, produce a characteristic pattern of interpersonal exploitation. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. The popular internet treats these as interchangeable flavors of toxic person. They are not. Their internal architectures are fundamentally different, and if you cannot tell them apart, you cannot protect yourself from any of them. The narcissist's core drive is supply. They need to be seen, admired, envied, feared. Anything that confirms the grandiose self-image they have constructed to compensate for a core of unbearable emptiness. Jung called this inflation, the ego's identification with an archetype it was never meant to contain. You exist for the narcissist as an audience. Your function is to reflect their brilliance back to them. When you do this well, you are idealized. When you fail, when you assert your own reality, you are devalued. The famous cycle of idealization and devaluation is not cruelty for its own sake. It is the narcissist immune system attacking anything that threatens the grandiose self. Their weapon is emotional volatility. Their vulnerability is narcissistic injury. The moment the mask cracks and the emptiness shows, the psychopath's core feature is not violence. It is deficit, reduced fear response, diminished affective empathy, an autonomic nervous system that, at elevated levels, simply does not fire the way yours does when confronted with another person's suffering. Robert Hare, who spent decades studying psychopathy in forensic populations, emphasized that the highly psychopathic individual does not choose to ignore your pain. They do not experience it as signal. It registers closer to noise, static. Your tears carry roughly the same emotional weight as a weather report. This exists on a spectrum. Not every person with elevated psychopathic traits is a predator, but at the higher end of the dimension, your distress is not something they suppress. It is something that barely arrives. Their weapon is impulsivity married to fearlessness. Their vulnerability is their own boredom. They need stimulation the way you need oxygen, and that need makes them reckless. And then there is the one that concerns us most today. The Machiavellian is neither hungry nor empty. The Machiavellian is strategic. In 1970, psychologists Richard Christie and Florence Geis developed the Markov scale to measure a specific cluster of interpersonal orientations. They named it after Niccolo Machiavelli, the 16th century political theorist who wrote, "In essence, a wise ruler need not keep his word. He need only ensure that others believe he is keeping it." Christie and Geis found that a measurable segment of the general population operates according to this philosophy in their personal relationships. 3 features define them: strategic manipulation, not impulsive control, not emotional outbursts; calculated, long horizon, goal-oriented influence. They think about relationships the way a portfolio manager thinks about assets, in terms of risk, return, and strategic positioning. Cynical worldview, they do not believe that genuine altruism exists. In their mental model, every human being is pursuing self-interest. The only variable is honesty about it. Manipulation, therefore, is not immoral, it is simply efficient. Outcome supremacy. Morality is not a compass, it is a tool. They will display moral behavior when it serves their objectives and discard it the moment it does not. They are not immoral in the way psychopaths are immoral, through deficit. They are immoral by calculation. So here is the critical distinction most people miss. The narcissist needs you to love them. The psychopath does not register your presence as meaningful. The Machiavellian needs you to be useful. You are not their mirror, you are not their entertainment. You are a piece on their board. And a piece does not need to be loved, it needs to be positioned. One more thing before we go deeper. This framework is not a weapon. It is not designed to give you a label to pin on someone at dinner and walk away feeling righteous. It is a risk identification system, a way of understanding why certain interactions leave you feeling less and less like yourself. If you use it to judge, you have missed the point. If you use it to see, you have understood. Let me describe something you may recognize. Early in the relationship, you mentioned something, a throwaway detail. How your father never came to your school events, how you always felt invisible in your own family. You said it casually, the way you might mention the weather. You did not think much of it, but they filed it. And later, every time you felt insecure, they knew exactly what to say. They held you in precisely the right way. They said the words that made you feel, for the first time, like someone truly understood the architecture of your loneliness. Until the day you needed them to understand it for real. The day you broke down and said, "I am drowning." And they looked at you with an expression you had never seen before. Not cold, exactly, neutral, clinical. And they said, "You always do this. Have you considered that this might be your problem?" They remembered every wound. But they did not remember them to protect you. They remembered them because wounds are the best handles. To understand what happened in that moment, you need to understand that the word empathy is hiding two completely different cognitive operations inside a single syllable. Simon Baron-Cohen at Cambridge proposed a model that separates empathy into two independently functioning dimensions. Affective empathy, you see someone crying and your chest tightens, your eyes sting. This is automatic. It is your mirror neuron system firing. Your nervous system literally simulating the other person, distress inside your own body. You do not choose this. It happens to you. Cognitive empathy. You observe someone and, through analysis, inference, and pattern recognition, you construct a model of their internal state. She is speaking more quietly than usual. Her smile does not reach her eyes. She is probably masking something. This is a computational process. It has nothing to do with whether you feel anything at all. Think of it this way. Affective empathy is a thermometer. Stand next to someone with a fever and your own temperature rises. Cognitive empathy is a thermal imaging camera. It detects every fluctuation in the other person as heat signature with perfect precision. But the device itself stays cold. These two systems can operate independently. A person can possess extraordinary cognitive empathy and almost no affective empathy whatsoever. Now, here is where the research gets interesting and where most popular accounts get it wrong. In 2021, German psychologist Christian Bleitner and his team published a meta-analysis examining the relationship between Machiavellianism and empathy across multiple studies. Their finding, Machiavellianism correlates negatively with both cognitive and affective empathy. Read that again. Both, not just affective. This means high Machiavellian individuals do not, on average, possess the superior mind, reading ability that popular psychology attributes to them. They are not empaths with the conscience surgically removed. So how do they create that devastating illusion of being perfectly understood? The answer is not empathy. It is modeling. They do not need to feel you. They need to predict you. Empathy connects, modeling controls. And you do not need to feel what someone feels in order to predict what they will do. You only need to observe their patterns, their triggers, their needs, their breaking points, and build a behavioral map accurate enough to anticipate their responses. This is not a supernatural gift. It is strategic attention deployment. Ordinary empathy is diffuse. You walk into a room and you absorb the emotional atmosphere. Who is anxious, who is joyful, who is pretending. Your empathic attention scatters across the social field like light. Machiavellian attention is a laser. When they decide you are strategically relevant, they concentrate the full force of their cognitive machinery on you alone. They analyze your attachment patterns, your insecurities, your desire structures, your decision-making triggers. They are not better at reading people than you are. They are more motivated to read you specifically, because reading you is the prerequisite for operating you. That experience of being deeply seen in the early stages of the relationship was not intimacy. It was reconnaissance, or to put it more plainly, it was casing. You were not being known, you were being mapped, and the moment the map was complete, the moment they had extracted sufficient strategic value, or the moment a better target appeared, the spotlight went dark. The thermal camera swung to another subject, and you were left standing in the cold, asking a question that has no satisfying answer. Where did the person who understood me go? They were never there. What was there was a program running against your response curves, calibrated to your specific architecture of need. The program finished its cycle. That is all. Now I want to reverse the lens, not to look at what they are, but to show you what they build inside you. If you have been in a relationship with someone operating from this architecture, your most persistent confusion is probably this. They never did anything obviously terrible. So why do I feel like I am disappearing? That feeling has a name. Traumatic shame. Ordinary shame says, I did something wrong. Traumatic shame says, I am something wrong. It does not target your behavior. It targets your being. And in these relationships it is not accidental. It is engineered. Here is the blueprint. Floor by floor, the warmth is not constant. It arrives on an unpredictable schedule. 3 days of closeness, 1 day of inexplicable withdrawal, then sudden, intense connection again. Behavioral psychology has understood this mechanism since Skinner. Pigeons, intermittent reinforcement produces stronger behavioral attachment than consistent reward. Your brain becomes addicted to the unpredictable return of warmth. Precisely because it is unpredictable, you begin compulsively monitoring, adjusting, performing, trying to trigger the next positive cycle. You are no longer in a relationship. You are in a slot machine. The damage never arrives naked. It arrives wearing the language of concern. They will not say, you are inadequate. They will say, I am only saying this because I care about you. I think you could handle things more maturely. They will not say, shut up. They will say, I just think you being a little sensitive right now. I worry about you. When harm is dressed in the vocabulary of love, the victim cannot protest without appearing unreasonable. Any objection confirms their framing. You are the problem. You are the unstable one. They are the patient, caring partner trying to help. They have occupied the moral high ground, and from there they can fire downward at will. If you are inside this architecture, 3 observable changes will begin to appear in your behavior. 1. You start writing longer text messages, longer explanations, longer justifications for things that should not require justification. 2. You start rehearsing conversations before they happen, running simulations in your head, trying to find the phrasing that will not trigger a withdrawal. 3. You start feeling vigilant even during the good moments. Happiness becomes conditional. You are waiting for it to be revoked. If you recognized yourself in all 3, keep listening, but also breathe. This is diagnostic, not permanent. This is the most insidious flaw. You say, I felt hurt by what you said. They say, that's not what I meant, you rereading into things. You say, you've been distant. They say, I've been perfectly normal. Maybe you should ask yourself why you always looking for problems. Once, twice, you can still distinguish your perception from their narrative, but after months, after years of systematic invalidation, your brain does something rational and devastating. It surrenders. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I do overreact. Maybe my feelings are the problem. You take over the gaslighting operation. You internalize their voice. You begin doing their work for them, automatically, without being asked. This is not weakness. This is your attachment system doing exactly what it was designed to do. John Bowlby demonstrated that when the attachment system is activated by threat, its first imperative is not self-protection. It is proximity maintenance. Preserve the bond with the attachment figure at all costs. This means that when something goes wrong in the relationship, your nervous system's default response is not to evaluate the other person's behavior. It is to ask, what must I do to restore safety? The Machiavellian, consciously or not, exploits this architecture with surgical precision. The intermittent cycle of warmth and withdrawal keeps your attachment system in a permanent state of activation. All your cognitive resources are consumed by a single question: how do I fix this? And while you are asking that question, you never get to ask the only question that matters: is this relationship something that should be fixed at all? Now, let me show you what happens when these architectures combine. But first, a necessary frame. We are not looking for monsters. There are no monsters in this video. What we are looking at is how power moves inside intimate systems, how it concentrates, how it disguises itself, and how it restructures the people it passes through. If you walk away from this section with a checklist for identifying villains, I have failed. If you walk away understanding how certain configurations of traits create certain gravitational fields in relationships, then we are getting somewhere. In reality, these traits almost never appear in pure form. They blend. They amplify each other. And the specific mixture determines the specific dynamic. This is the person who needs to win and knows exactly how to arrange the board. In professional settings, they are often spectacular, charismatic, visionary, ruthlessly effective. They accumulate power not through brute force but through network management, reputation engineering, and strategic alliance building. They are the CEO who inspires devotion and quietly destroys anyone who threatens their position. The mentor who builds your career and collects the debt forever. The friend who is generous in public and keeps a ledger in private. Their narcissism provides the fuel, the need for dominance and admiration. Their Machiavellianism provides the engine, the strategic patience to achieve it without leaving fingerprints. This is the configuration most closely aligned with what we have been discussing today. High cognitive processing, low affective response. Long horizon strategic thinking, unimpeded by guilt, anxiety, or moral hesitation. This person does not need your love. They do not need your fear. They need your compliance, and they will engineer it with the detached efficiency of a systems architect. They are the most difficult to detect because they produce the fewest emotional signals. No rage, no grandiosity, no recklessness, just quiet, persistent, strategic positioning until you realize that every choice you thought was yours was actually theirs. When all three traits are elevated, grandiosity, strategic manipulation, and affective deficit, you get a personality structure that is, in the clinical literature, described as both highly functional and highly destructive. They can read a room, charm a room, and dismantle a room. They combine the narcissist's social magnetism, the Machiavellian's strategic patience, and the psychopath's freedom from guilt into a single operating system. These individuals are rare in their full expression, but their partial expressions, the colleague who is a little too strategic, the partner who is a little too calculating, the friend whose empathy always seems to serve their interests. These are everywhere. The question is not, is this person a dark triad personality? That framing invites binary thinking, and binary thinking is exactly what these dynamics exploit. The question is, in this relationship, am I becoming more of myself or less? I am not going to tell you what to do if you are in a relationship that matches the architecture I have described. You already know. You have known for longer than you are comfortable admitting. The purpose of this video was not to inform you of something new. It was to give you the language for something you have felt but could not name. But I will give you one diagnostic. Jung wrote about the persona, the social mask we construct to navigate the world. In healthy relationships, the persona relaxes over time. You become more yourself, not less. You say things you have never said. You reveal parts of yourself you had kept hidden. The mask comes off. In the relationships I have been describing, the opposite happens. The persona thickens. You become more careful, more monitored, more strategic in your own communication, because you have learned that any unguarded moment can be weaponized. If you are becoming a better performer in a relationship instead of a more honest person, that is the signal. And here is one more thing. If you have recognized yourself in the Machiavellian architecture, not as the target, but as the operator, I have something to say to you as well, that cynical worldview. The conviction that everyone is playing a game. That trust is naivety, that vulnerability is a liability. It was not something you invented, it was something you learned. Somewhere in your history, someone taught you that the world does not reward openness, that safety comes only from control, that the only way to avoid being manipulated is to manipulate first. Jung would call this a psychic structure formed around a wound, operating autonomously, repeating its logic in every relationship you enter. You are not free, you are running a program that someone else wrote. The exit for you is the same as the exit for the person you have been using. Consciousness, seeing the pattern, naming it, and choosing, perhaps for the first time, to do something that terrifies you. To let someone see you without a strategy. That is all for today. Let us keep walking into the deeper rooms together. I am thus spoke Psyche.